Hello everyone and welcome back to the channel. Today we are talking about the Montana Senate race. So we've talked about this race before a few months ago, I believe, but now we are giving you guys an update. Things have definitely shifted in the last few months and not the way that I was really expecting them to. Sheehy, the Republican, who is a newcomer in politics, he's a military veteran, pretty rich from private businesses that he's done. It's up 8 points at this point in the race. That is enormously high. That is not a toss-up race anymore. That is not a tilt race. This is in lean category at this point in time, which is really remarkable because earlier on we saw the polling be much more competitive within a 2, 3, 5, maybe even point range, but all really in margin of error. But now when we're looking at 8, 7, 6, 8, this all is pointing pretty decisively towards Sheehy winning this race. Now, why is that? What has led in the past few months to see a change in this race? Because recently, since Kamala Harris became the nominee over Joe Biden, we saw a change in the opposite direction for a lot of the Senate race, most notably Jackie Rosen. She went from having a 5-point lead when Biden was the nominee to having an 11-point lead at this point in the race now that Kamala Harris is the nominee. So what is going on with this Montana race that's different and leading to a different outcome? Now, before we get too far into the minutia of this race, I just want to give an overall overview of what's going on. So we have Jon Tester, obviously, he's the Democratic nominee. He won his election in 2018, and now he's running again 2024 for his third term. He's running against Tim Sheehy, who is a businessman veteran. This is one of his first notable, if not his actual first race for office, so it's very surprising for him to be going at such a high level, but overall it shows that Montana Republican, their party, thinks that putting anyone forward with an R next to their name is going to be successful against Jon Tester. One other thing to note is that Jon Tester is one of the more moderate Democrats in the Senate at this current point in time. He's also one of the ones that has the highest approval rating. Now, high is an overstatement. All of the senators and Congress people have pretty low approval ratings, actually, but overall Jon Tester is one of the higher ones overall, so he's pretty well liked. So it's surprising to see a senator who has a higher than average approval rating be ousted probably in this election cycle. Now, what I think is Tester's biggest problem in this election isn't him personally. I think it's overall a problem with the Democratic Party that Montana voters aren't super happy with. So we know that Montana is a super red state. Trump won in 2020 by, I believe, 16 points. So obviously solid red state. It's known for that as well. It's not super known for being liberal or anything. But overall, I think that Montana Democrats and Republicans are just more and more unhappy with how the Democratic Party has leaned in certain aspects, and also specifically Joe Biden. And so we know that Joe Biden nationally has an approval or unfavorability rating of 54%, which is enormously high since the June debate. It's increasing higher, obviously, since the beginning of his term when he was mostly liked. This is absolutely flipped on its head, and he's unfavorable with even a large portion of Democrats, never mind Republicans, who have never even liked him from the beginning. So he's unliked, and Tester is seen as someone, or at least the Democrats, or the Republicans, are trying to shift him to seem like someone who is they're trying to tie Joe Biden and Jon Tester to be one and the same in the Democratic Party establishment and everything like that, trying to paint him out as a progressive. And they're also not running that good of a campaign, honestly, because when you look at this, you see that, Tester's outraising his opponent 2-1. But he's still behind in the polls. And this is insane because when you look at the numbers, Sheehy's raised $14 million to Tester's $43 million. Tester has spent $32 million, while Sheehy has only spent $10 million. So this is insane, right? This is such a large deficit between the spending, but that doesn't relieve people's concerns, or Montanans' concerns in the overall Democratic Party. They don't want Tester to be a puppet of, say, Chuck Schumer, Joe Biden, Kamala Harris, whoever becomes is the leader in the Democratic Party next. They don't want Tester being a puppet. They are voting for whoever has an R next to their name. And it's a pretty big hurdle for Tester to overcome. Recently, he's been trying to be more centrist. Well, after the debate against with Joe Biden and Kamala Harris, he was like, I think that Joe Biden should drop out. So trying to appeal to his base, of course, and now he's not even saying officially if he's going to be voting for Kamala Harris, but that doesn't discern the fact that he's been voting with Democrats on a large swath of issues, important issues mostly, for majority of votes in the Senate. He's not known as for like Joe Manchin or Kristen Sinema as being someone who strays away from the Democratic Party, even though they have a D, or like Kristen Sinema now she is a independent, but for a long time was a Democrat. He's not known as someone who goes against the grain or goes against the Democratic Party. He's pretty known for just being more center left than progressive like AOC or Bernie Sanders or anyone, but still goes along with the Democratic Party establishment. So that's going to be the biggest hurdle for him to overcome. I honestly don't think that he will be able to. There's less than a month left in this election, or exactly a month basically, and he's drowning in the polls. 6.7% is an extreme deficit to have to overcome in such a short period of time. They had their debate. They had a debate like recently before the vice presidential debate, but didn't change much. They debated, of course, but again, they're trying to tie Tester with the rest of the Democratic Party, and it's pretty big hurdle to overcome. Montana is a changing state. There are more immigrants coming into Montana, but they're not, like, by immigrants I mean people from other states, not from other countries, but they're not making Montana to be a more Republican or Democratic state, rather the opposite. They're making it more Republican. So the ads that they've been running, all the money that they've been funneling into this race isn't going to help with the voting record that Tester has had in the last few election cycles. Tester is a Democrat at heart. In 2012 and 2018, he won by a pretty good margin, right? It's pretty hard to beat someone who is winning by a 3-point margin, or who won their races by a 3-point margin, rather. But in a race and in a social environment and setting where people are upset with Democrats, mostly Montanans who are pretty more, even though they are Republicans, they're not super far Republicans normally, right? The fact that they even voted in someone like Tester, who is a Democrat in a solid Republican state, means that they are more center-left or center-right, and they have more variability with their politicians overall. And for him to have won his last few races by 3% shows that there's something different going on now. It's not necessarily a problem with him, right? He's had pretty much the same voting record and policy platforms and everything over the last 4 years, or over the last 12 years rather, but it's rather something that's going on with the Democratic Party. The D next to his name is hurting him more than the R next to Sheehy's name is helping him, honestly. Also, the Republicans are doing a pretty good grassroots campaign at this point in time. It's honestly very good. And, Daines, the other senator from Montana, says that the grassroots campaign that Sheehy's running is unlike anything he's ever seen of a politician, which is pretty high words coming from a senator. His, most notably worked on his campaigns, obviously, that have been successful, and also helped with other campaigns. So it's crazy that he's saying that it's so, that the grassroots campaign has been so successful on Sheehy's side. Something I find interesting about Sheehy's campaign is that they're running away from media in pretty large amounts. He's constructed this persona that he's a young conservative veteran and doesn't really want to deviate himself from that, or doesn't want anyone to ask questions of his positions or his policy or where he came from or his money or any positions or, discrepancies that he's had in his past, says a Montana political journalist. And it's interesting to me because I've criticized Kamala Harris in their campaign about not taking as many interviews. Kamala Harris has done 3 interviews in total, one of which was a joint one with her and Tim Walz. Tim Walz has done 4 in total, again, one being a joint one, while the Trump-Vance campaign has done around 74 or something like that interviews total, while they've done 7. So it's an extreme difference in how many interviews they're doing. I've criticized Kamala Harris's campaign for that in the past, and especially in this last month. I think that's very necessary to be doing interviews on her end of things, but enough about that. Getting back to this, I think it's interesting that Sheehy is not doing that. But I think it's honestly smarter at this point in time for him, because what he's betting on is that people are voting for the R next to his name, not necessarily him or him being an ideologue or a leader of politics in their community, but rather just being a deviation away from Joe Biden and Kamala Harris and the Democrats that they deem are too far left, and that they believe Tester is a part of, even though Tester is much less centrist than them. He's denounced them and whatnot, denouncing meaning that he wanted Joe Biden to drop out, and Kamala Harris, he hasn't even officially said if he's voting for her or not, which would be unheard of if he was going to vote for Donald Trump instead. That'd be insane political news to hear. So I think it honestly makes sense for the Sheehy campaign to not be doing interviews, because honestly all that matters is the party that he's registered under, not his specific policy beliefs on anything for the voters in Montana, it seems like. In the debate, again, the debate didn't really change much. He still falling behind in the polls. Tester being the person in question here. He's drowning in the polls, as we see here, and it's really shifted over the last few months and not in his favor, even though Kamala Harris has become a nominee. And so overall, I think that this is going to be a Republican win for the Senate and going to shift the balance of power in the Senate. So if we look at this map, let me just fill this in really quickly with all the states that we know are going to be solid Republican or Democrat. These aren't going to shift at all in any way, shape, or form. Also, Maine, Angus King is the independent senator incumbent there. He's going to win again, and so I'm just coloring it as blue because there is no really independent option here at this point in time. Also, he does caucus with Democrats pretty much all the time, so just having it remain blue, I think, is the best current option right now. And then the rest of the races, even though Texas could possibly flip, I'm not really seeing it as much as other people are talking about it. It's become more and more competitive over the last few weeks or months maybe, but overall, I don't see it really flipping. Ted Cruz is the incumbent. Ted Cruz is known as one of the most popular, I guess you could say, or infamous Republican senators, and so I don't see him losing his seat at any point in time soon. So now that we have the race basically figured out, I think that Montana, like I said, is going to go to Tim Sheehy. Not by a likely margin, but by a lean margin, definitely. Like we talked about, Rosen is going to win this election pretty decidedly as well. And then Arizona, I think Ruben Gallego is going to win this, but pretty narrowly. Oh, Minnesota, sorry, forgot to fill that in. Wisconsin, now Hovde, I don't think he really has much of a chance here. Also, I think that Michigan and Wisconsin usually vote pretty much in tandem. I think Michigan's going to stay blue with Lisa Slotkin as well. Ohio, pretty tough there as well. That's one of the ones I'm more unsure of. It could go either way, honestly. It could be a toss-up. It's one of, with Montana, the more competitive races here, though I guess by my coloring here, it doesn't really seem to be so. But Ohio, I think, is going to go blue. I think that the incumbent Sherrod Brown is going to be able to keep his seat there. At least that's what polling says. And then Pennsylvania, I think Bob Casey is going to keep his seat in there as well. But again, extremely narrowly. And also, if Democrats lose these states in the Senate elections, they're probably going to lose them, or at least one of them, that being Pennsylvania, in the Electoral College as well. Now, looking at this, we obviously, Republicans 51, Democrats 49. Republicans would take control of the Senate, so no matter who wins the presidency, there's going to be a Republican majority in the Senate, which is going to lead to a lot more controversies if presumably the House leads over to the Democrats, and we're not going to get that much done in the next 6 years. So thank you all for watching, and let me know what you guys think of this. If you disagree with me on Montana's take, if you have any recommendations for the Sheehy or Tester campaigns, though I think that Tester is really more so looking for them right now as it currently stands. But thank you for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.